Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC, execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice, crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.
Well, hello everyone again. We're here for another episode of REKT Vision. It's myself and OSF. As is REKT Vision tradition, we seem to be selling off as soon as the show has gone live. Bitcoin is hanging out at 57K. Everything looks pretty precarious going into the weekend. We've got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk about this week. How are you feeling firstly about the market though, OSF?
I don't know what to think. I mean, we've had such a strong week for TradFi.
Crazy.
Such a strong week in terms of macro data, like lower than expected PPI, lower than expected CPI, huge beat on retail sales. We're ahead of potential consecutive months of rate cuts starting next month in about a month, less than a month's time, possibly, I think. And stocks are rallying, like stocks are doing well, and just crypto just can't seem to catch a break right now. And I don't know if it's just technical selling because of US government Bitcoin, Mt. Gox, FTX estate, jump trading. I mean, the fact that I can mention a few of them is in itself says quite a lot, doesn't it? But I don't know. I just don't know what it takes now to get crypto going. It's no longer like the traditional like let's join the risk rally thing. It's become back to its own sort of idiosyncratic risk bucket, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely something and I can already feel from your sentiment in the conversations that we have that you're getting a little bit more worried about how crypto is trading. I think it's just more like a summer lull, to be honest. And I think the long-term drivers behind crypto haven't really changed. But it has been a very, a positive week for macro. That this week looks like it's going to be the best week for stocks in about 9 months. So a big rebound in tech stocks. We spoke about how they actually looked a little bit precarious, but they've all come soaring back. NASDAQ kind of regained all of its losses almost on the back of basically economic data not looking that bad. And I think there was some talk about it was a Kamala style sell-off. That doesn't seem to have held. And the yen unwind trade seems to have also largely gone a little bit quiet. So I think that's kind of meant that everyone's felt a little bit better. You had retail sales come out yesterday, which was stronger than expected. You had initial jobless numbers come out okay, slightly lower than expected. And then you had CPI and PPI both come in slightly lower than expected too. So you had this situation where we could have a bit of a soft landing. Inflation is dropping and maybe the economy isn't as bad as predicted. And I think people felt a little bit more confident about that. And you've seen money 100% flow right back into macro. At the same time, as soon as those figures kind of hit, crypto sold off, which I thought was slightly strange. Do you think people are just rotating out of crypto even more? We've had quite a bit of an underperformance of crypto versus some of these tech stocks over the last 18 months. Let's say beside maybe Solana and Bitcoin. But it does feel as though as soon as that figure hit, suddenly everyone was like, well, I want to be in tech stocks rather than crypto again.
Yeah, it just feels like because you've had so many traditional stocks this year perform very well, and not just like micro caps, right? Like large caps, something like Nvidia, for example, like the return on that in the last 12 months is way greater than many altcoins, which are down in that same time period. So you just had such a strong return on a bunch of tech stocks, mainly driven by AI, that those guys don't feel like they want to pivot into crypto to chase additional returns. And I think that's the thing that I kind of didn't see this year, because last year NASDAQ was finished the year up 40%. And this year I was like, well, it's not going to put another 40% year. So this is the year that people start to dip further into the risk bucket and look at crypto again. And it started off like that, and especially with the ETFs, I was like, it's so easy for people to do that now. And we did start off by seeing that sort of flow, but the AI narrative just became so strong, and the numbers were so good that we just never really saw that. I don't know, like introduction of additional capital into crypto, and it just crypto to me. And this is purely an anecdotal statement. Just has felt like the same people that were involved last year or the year before. It doesn't really feel like we've had many new people, and that's maybe why there's some frustration as to why price hasn't risen that much. And yeah, like we've had Bitcoin ETFs, but what's the inflows there? Like $14-15 billion of net inflows just into Bitcoin. Like that's a pretty good number, but we don't know how much of that has been the basis trade. So the net number is not as high as that. It just feels like we haven't seen that inflow yet. And there's an argument to say we're early because we haven't seen it yet. And, we haven't really fully started the cycle yet because we had some left translation because of the ETFs, etc. So there's an argument to say the best is yet to come. But, if you've been in crypto for the last, let's say, at least 2 years, maybe even 1 year, you're definitely starting to feel the frustration now. And it does feel very much like last summer all over again.
Yeah. I mean, that was a sentiment popularized, I think, a couple of weeks ago by Kobe, who's kind of a well-known crypto figure, who was saying that he doesn't even think this is a proper cycle, that we might see a cycle maybe in a year or 2 years, which is quite a dangerous narrative for people, I think, looking at crypto, because you're like, oh, it'll be next year that we rally. But this doesn't feel like a classic cycle in terms of, I guess, increase in mind share. It's interesting what you said, because I think there's been kind of two halves. You have people like Buffett, who is increasing his cash pile to like owning more treasuries than like the Fed, like unbelievable amounts of cash he's sitting on, defensively positioned. And you have, fear about the revenue gap for some of these AI companies that, maybe Magnificent Seven won't deliver on the revenue gains that you need to see from AI. That's maybe slightly separate for NVIDIA. And that kind of was a sentiment that you were hearing a few weeks ago. But then as soon as the economy seems to be a bit more risk on, I think crypto performs best when there's debasement, when there's money printing. And if we had, potentially, I think that crypto could have performed better if people felt like we were going into maybe a light recession, because that would mean more money printing, and the gold style aspects of Bitcoin, I think, become more attractive in that world. If we're going to see strong economic growth, I do think that people might put their chips more towards stocks. And I think that's kind of what you saw over the last week. But let's see. I think there will be money printing globally regardless, but it does feel as though for it to really go parabolic, you probably want to see actually weaker economic data could help crypto over the medium term. But yeah, that's kind of what we felt. As soon as that CPI figure came in below expectations, macro ripped, crypto dipped, and it's kind of, we're looking increasingly precarious. It looks like today we'll go into kind of some of the technicals around it, which is the second bit that you mentioned, which is that we have actually seen a bit more distributions come out. We saw around 2 billion more of the Mt. Gox Bitcoin. Looks like it's about to be distributed. That's like the final bit. That's kind of going to BitGo, which is one of the major custodians. And I think they already made distributions to Kraken, an exchange in South Korea. So that should be kind of it, but that will be a slow trickle, I think, of selling over the next year, 2 years. It's good that we're kind of seeing the back of it, but there's definitely been some distributions there. There was a movement of, I think it was 1,000 or 10,000 Bitcoin from the US government, which is around 580 million. And that, I don't know if that's going to be sold. It was kind of unclear whether that was just being moved to Coinbase for custody or if that was going to be sold. But that caused a little bit of FUD. And then, as you said, Jump, which is one of the major trading firms, continues to dump its holdings, mainly its ETH holdings. We saw again today that it's been selling. So there's been some slight dissipation, let's say, of supply there. And then we also saw that Bitcoin, from a technical standpoint, also had a death cross on its weekly, which has been a lot of the chartists across crypto, of which there are thousands, kind of came in and started pointing to much lower levels. This was on the weekly, so it's kind of a higher time frame sort of indicator. And yeah, what did you think of crypto here then, given those two things?
I think if I was in a position where I was up profits on the year and I hadn't taken anything out, I'd be selling a bit here.
Oh,
Yeah. And I think you can't, stamp yourself to your portfolio all-time highs. I think that's a mistake lots of people make because you think, oh, when it gets back there, I'll sell it, and it may not get back there. So I think if I hadn't taken any money out already this year, I would be monetizing a little bit here. Because I have taken like a decent amount of profits out. I think I'm just holding here, but I'm definitely not adding risk. I think for me, I think we need to see. I'm not saying this will happen, but I think I would need to, given the way that crypto is trading, I think I would need to see like a 20 or 30% drop in Bitcoin for me to want to put risk back on, like put my fiat back into crypto. I think
we did get that. I mean, it did hit 9K, didn't it?
Yeah, we hit 49K, which is, I guess that's 20%, isn't it? And I think that's the level that I would like start to DC, and I wouldn't like put in my whole amount there. I would like sort of DCA there, but because I think my fear is that we get to a level like that, if not lower, and it takes us a while to bounce back. We don't have this like V-shaped recovery, and I'm still really bullish crypto over like, let's say 12 months, for example. But I just fear that given everything that's happened, we just maybe need to have this clear out and maybe take some time for a lot of supply to be absorbed, and the recovery takes a little bit longer than we're hoping for. I don't know. It's just I'm basing that really more on like how things have been trading rather than the fundamentals, because I think the fundamentals are still extremely bullish for crypto, and nothing has really changed there other than maybe like Trump losing steam in the elections. But I think the fundamentals are still like extremely bullish. But when the price doesn't behave the way you expect it to, it's either a buying opportunity or you have to, reconsider what's going on. And for me to reconsider, I need to see like at least, a few months of like price not behaving the way I want it to. And it feels like it's been like that for a few months now, right? It's been since February. We've just been chopping. So for a good 6 months, we've been chopping, and it's just like, despite, look at the 6 month price action in tech stocks versus crypto. I don't know. I mean, it just, I don't know. It's a real tough one. It's a real tough one because you could just sell some here, and in a few weeks' time, thinking, "Fuck, what was I thinking?" Of course, crypto had underperformed; it was due an outperformance, but that's just been the thought process for a long time now, and I'm a bit worried we need to see a bit more down and a bit more of a clear out before we can really get that up.
Yeah, I'm holding on. I think we saw that the other day, 277,000. And what I like doing these weeklies is it kind of makes me think about what I was thinking about last week or week before. And I did feel as though we weren't going to see V-shaped recovery after that sort of a liquidation. When you liquidate 277K traders, basically in a 48-hour period, it felt like and we had this, what we've just said, like tech stocks looking attractive, increasingly kind of dunking on crypto in certain ways. I felt as though people might just be like, I can't be bothered to stick around and wait for this. That being said, the way the crypto always acts is it gets out of these periods of chop violently and kind of maybe at unexpected points. I continue, and I've said it for weeks and weeks and weeks now, that I think that now crypto rallies, we get out of this range probably after the election. Maybe in or maybe the week before, like people start to feel a little bit okay about both scenarios, whatever happens, and we start to see a bit of a rally then. That's kind of where I start to think that the underlying strong fundamentals of crypto mean that people kind of get back into it. Right now, fear and greed index in crypto is down at like 27. I think we could go a little bit lower, but I also think it's a bear trap. And I think a lot of people are just losing faith because of how long these chops are. And I remember this last year, like the amount of people that would lose faith as we looked like we were going to fall off a cliff, and then it would just bounce straight back. And I kind of feel like it's going to be like that. I think we could have another one of these tests down to like 45, 50K. But if you are going to get those moments, I think you've got to take advantage of those moments or sell now to buy later. I think you've got to be very adept at getting in on those dips. So I think you'll see a lot of fake outs. just like we saw fake outs to the upside, right? I think we're going to see fake outs to the downside here in the same sort of way. We hit 71K, like, what is it, 6 or 7 times? And now it feels like the consensus, at least, is that we might be heading a little bit lower, or we look precarious and could head to like the high 40s or maybe even mid 40s. And I think that when that starts to become consensus and people start to lose faith, I do like those moments. So for me, I'm looking at the other way. I'm looking for, well, maybe not the other way. I'm just not selling. I'm looking to buy on any sort of major dip, because I don't think Bitcoin as an asset below 50K just seems like a great buy to me. So I'm going to stick to majors. I do think what we're increasingly seeing is that PvP sort of environment in some of the more risky stuff that people are just losing faith in. But I just think it's an obvious buy if it goes down to some of those levels. If Solana gets down towards 100 again, ETH kind of heads to 2000. I think those are just obvious buy points. But I do see what you're saying, and I think this period could actually hurt a lot of people both ways, because what a lot of people will do, they'll wait for it to hit 50K and then they'll sell. They'll get caught up in the panic. And I think if you feel, and I know you're more of a short, well, you understand how to trade, so, but I think I agree with you that I think there's like an above 50% probability here that we're going to go to maybe the high 40s again, maybe even mid 40s again. But I think you have to be very, very quick at buying those periods.
I think that's one thing I would say. You are right. Like, it does feel like it's very consensus now that we're going lower, and that's often can be a good point to buy and fade it. But the reason why I think it's consensus that we're going lower is not because people are short. I think because everyone's long and people are just like, oh fuck, like I kind of want to sell now. This hasn't worked. Like that kind of feels like that sort of consensus. It's not like consensus we're going lower. It's just like consensus frustration. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and that's a different. If it was like everyone's short and we think we're going lower, like that's a different thing. But it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like everyone's in the same boat. Like we're all long, and we're just like, this is just like, this sucks. Like that is the consensus. The type of consensus it feels like to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just if you are here for the medium term, just kind of ignore everything, go on holiday, touch grass, as they say, and hopefully it will be over by November, and I think everyone will be kind of pretty bullish again. What we have seen though is a bit of a rotation actually in terms of what people are actually looking at. I think the main thing has been over the last 3 weeks, but it's really picked up over the last week. All the major winners this week and kind of last week even as well were these DeFi coins. And there's been a few things there. You've seen, firstly, that the TVLs are heading back towards 2022 levels. You're seeing the number of active participants in these ecosystems go up, and you see people getting more bullish on some of the airdrops around the DeFi protocols. Plus, you've seen the switch from many of these to a fee sharing model, which has been quite a big deal, and maybe some expectation that the SEC will lose or at least back down from its Uniswap case, which people are getting a little bit bullish on. I think this is good because I do think that DeFi has got a future. They just need to get the governance protocols actually sharing fees the right way, and people getting bullish on this sort of stuff. I think these sort of protocols can be applied, traditional finance, and these are the kind of the building blocks that you can build. Let's say the new rails upon. So I do get bullish when this starts to come back, and it makes me kind of feel like people are returning to some of the more long-term fundamentals in crypto. What do you make of this shift?
Yeah, I'm starting to see it as well. Like a lot of these coins or tokens, which actually have real utility or real fundamentals behind them, are down like 95%, right? And we've spoken at length about the reasons why, like VC unlocks, all that kind of stuff. And they've just kind of been shunned aside, and people have been focused on Bitcoin and left curve meme coin stuff. And that's just kind of been the theme of the year. I can't say I can think of like a specific catalyst for stuff shifting back to this to DeFi and to altcoins, etc. But what I would say is if I wasn't really that involved in crypto and someone came to me and was like, hey, look, all this stuff is down 90%. Would you just throw a bit of money in just to see what happens? I'd think, yeah, you know what, probably I would. And if I think that right now, I think, yeah, like, why would I not just put in like a bit of money into like a few different things that are down 90%, sort of write it off as like a bet or a gamble. But, if once that stuff, if that stuff does start moving, then you could make a lot of money. So I kind of view it as like an out of the money option, if that makes sense. That's the way I would view it. I still don't, I'm still not, that's not to be confused with me saying I'm bullish altcoins and DeFi now. I can see that stuff returning. Like I'm still, yeah.
I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought the election, there was also Schumer, who's one of the, top Democratic senators, came out and said that we could see crypto regulation by this year. If that does come through, I do think DeFi is the main winner from an update in policy in the US. That could be the catalyst. I do think some of these are also election or, let's say, a softening of policy to crypto trades.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I still think policy-wise, I think it will take a long time for things to be implemented. But if you start to see consecutive positive headlines, then that can start to, surmount an effect. But that still doesn't feel that strong enough to me. I don't know. Like I think it's clear like Bitcoin is in its own league and will always be in its own league. And I'm just wondering if the other stuff will ever really bounce back. But at the same time, like you look at market caps, you look at the crypto total market cap and how tiny it is versus everything else it could do. And you can sit here, on the one hand, you can sit here and think, well, there are so many different coins. Which ones do I buy? There are so many different meme coins. Which one do I buy? But when you think about it in the context of stocks, there are tons of stocks out there. Which ones do you buy, right? And stocks can still do well. So yeah, I don't know. It's another tough one. It's just like you're starting to be in this position where you have an opportunity to take these contrarian trades and take the other side of things that are down a lot, but they've had such strong momentum that's kept them down, and it's literally like bag holder central, right? So you really need something to like strong to turn that momentum around in the other direction, and that's the thing I'm just not confident enough on to go out there and be like, cool, I'm going to allocate a ton of money into altcoins now. I'd throw some money at it. Or DeFi, yeah.
I think last week when we spoke about L1s, I'm more bullish on L1s. Like I can get involved with L1s because I just think they actually capture a lot of the value in crypto, and they are probably one of the safer risk reward bets. DeFi has been a catch a falling knife for years now. And there's been several times where it's bounced and everyone's been like, oh, get back in all the DeFi coins. And then they go down another like 40 to 60%, like tier one, some of the biggest DeFi protocols out there. The main criticism that always got leveled against them was the governance protocol one. That they know why would you ever own one of these? If you do see shifts there and suddenly you see policy come through, those seem like medium term tailwinds for these. So I don't at the same time, we know charts like that. Their bag holders have been holding this all the way down and they'll probably sell on a 2x. So it's difficult to think that these trades are like a 2 or 3x trades, particularly not like over a short term, over like before you start to get another opportunity to get into them, because I think you'll see big selling on any of those moves. But I can imagine in the altcoin space, this sector actually outperformed for a little bit. But I think it's just interesting to note, and for people who are, like DeFi from the last cycle, maybe got burnt on some of their coins, maybe check in things like Aave. It's having decent moves. A lot of the perp dexes. It just feels as though people are getting more bullish again, and some of those DeFi protocols are still in huge volumes. So it feels like it's not the worst risk reward, but I think the upside is not insane. So I kind of agree with you. In terms of other stuff that we've seen in terms of DeFi, let's say integration, or at least payments integration, Apple Pay actually came out. Well, the CEO of Circle came out and said that it looks like USDC, which is the one of the main stable coins in the market, it's going to be available for Apple Pay, which I think is quite a big integration. After it opens up its NFC, it's being forced to do this. So we could see USDC being used for Apple Pay sort of integrations. I guess that would be linked to your MetaMask or your Ledger wallets through your iPhone or Phantom or something like that. But to me, again, that seems to like you could see huge throughput of stablecoins here. I would be most bullish on things like Solana for this to as it comes through, because I think that's where you'll see a lot of the payments happen. But you could also say some of the ETH2s could see huge volume here. But Apple's never really embraced crypto, but if you can get an integration like this, then it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think these big headlines of big corps adopting crypto, it just feels like diminishing returns right now. Like if you had this headline 3 years ago, people would be like losing their marbles and be like, oh my God, like Apple's entering crypto and, Bitcoin would be up 20%, like stuff would really move. Whereas now it's felt like over those 3 years, it has happened. It's happening. Like we're getting the adoption, but it's not really like, yeah, I mean, it's great, but it's not really a needle mover in terms of price. And at the end of the day, like most people in crypto just care about the price. So I kind of feel like we've had a few of these headlines. I can't recall the others off the top of my head, but we've had a few of these headlines this year. Someone using Solana, who's adopting Solana?
Well, we've had all the major payments networks come in. Stripe said they were going to do it.
Yeah, that was at Stripe.
PayPal,
Yeah.
Visa, MasterCard have all had various different integrations for payments. It does feel as though there's been bullishness, particularly on Solana on that side. You saw some big throughput go through on stable coins. Payments, I agree with you though. It's kind of a known. Like people aren't getting like massively bullish on it at the moment. But these are the fundamentals that build a long-term bull case. I agree. They won't save us from Bitcoin going to 48K, but it is the sort of reason why it won't go to like 20K. Do you know what I mean?
Don't jinx yourself.
Why are you so bearish suddenly?
I'm not bearish. I'm just frustrated. But
yeah.
But I have been on the show for the last 3 or 4 weeks now. I feel like I haven't really.
Yeah, I felt like as soon as that Japanese yen trade unwound, and it kind of felt like we could head a little bit lower. It felt very precarious. It just doesn't feel like that marginal buyer is around at the moment. So any sort of wobble, people are like, well, who's actually going to buy my bags? But
one thing I would say is it is summer. Like summer is quiet. Or like in August, you're in the depths of summer, and like all the big boys with capital are just chilling in their Hamptons houses and all that kind of stuff, right? So people are not engaged right now. So we'll see how things are in September. But historically, also August and September, I think, are the 2 most bearish months for Bitcoin price action. So,
well, we saw this week that Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs came out and said they own, I think, just over $600 million of Bitcoin ETFs combined. And Morgan Stanley's wealth division has now been given the green light to start selling these things. I'm sure that will cause a bunch of the different major wealth management companies, whether it's UBS or maybe even Goldman themselves, to start selling it too. That feels like a post-Hamptons trade or a post-Saint-Tropez trade. You know what I mean?
Post-Hamptons trade. Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for. September and October, everyone gets back and decides they need to own Bitcoin ETF. And those guys, they're buy and hold by and large. It does feel as though a lot of the money that comes in there, at least that's what BlackRock have been saying, that the vast majority of the buyers of their ETFs have been buy and hold style investors. So
yeah,
that's a good sign for things. We'll do one more just before we go to the left curve corner. But the final thing is Polymarket. Which one was that one? Yeah. Polymarket I'm going to go to. But yeah, Polymarket may get regulated. This is something that we've spoken about a little bit, that Polymarket has been kind of the major beneficiary this year as like crypto's killer app. And we've seen that the CFTC came out basically this week or last week and said that they may look to regulate Polymarket and could go and try and cancel their ability to do bets on gaming, but also politics, which I thought was quite a quite a big deal. You saw some of the major crypto VCs come out this week, which was Dragonfly came out, I think it put out a response, and also Polymarket themselves, along with a host of others, basically saying this could be an overreach. This would, I think, kind of sucks because it's been the one shining light of crypto this cycle. We've seen huge volumes go through on political betting. It's kind of taken over a load of the degen betting this week. That was the other thing we had just up there. You had people betting $4.5 million on just what Trump would say in a speech. And I think there was another $1.5 million bet yesterday. So crazy volumes going through. Do you think the CFTC is overreaching here? That there is some talk about the fact that they don't even have, after the Chevron deference ruling, I think it was in June, that these 3A-letter agencies just don't really have the power to kind of come in and regulate these things. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like conceptually, that makes sense, but at the end of the day, like the SEC is still out here saying things, and albeit they're losing their court cases, etc., they're still trying their best to put in regulations. So I think until you have like a change in personnel there, probably, and you get to a situation where we're not asking these questions, like it's written out a lot more clearly, then I don't really see that happening. But yeah, that could be like, I think the Chevron thing is like signs of the wind changing perhaps, and getting some more clarity on like where the regulation should sit with which board, and whether it's SEC or whether it's CFTC, and whether this is a security or a commodity, etc. But the problem is, like, until someone spells it all out and it's all absolutely clear, it will always be an ongoing question. And I think for whatever reason, there are so many anti-crypto people in the US. Anyone who's in a position of power will do their best to try and clamp down on it if they're anti-crypto. And right now, we've seen that. We've seen attempts of it by the SEC, and they've been unsuccessful attempts so far.
Well, this Chevron deference, I think, basically says that you need Congress, or you need policy to be written, that these three-letter agencies aren't there to actually write policy or decide things on which there is no policy.
They're there to implement it, yeah.
Yeah, they're not here to do this sort of regulation by enforcement. Like you only really know because they lost a case versus the SEC or the CFTC. So it really tries to basically stop overreach from these agencies into areas where policy hasn't been written. That being said, I do think that this Polymarket stuff does feel pretty wild at the moment. Like, people are betting on individual words being said by Donald Trump in a speech at the moment. It's Donald Trump now. It could be anyone kind of going forward. I think there's already bets being made right now on what Kamala's going to say at the DNC. And you see millions of dollars go through. This does feel like the sort of place where people could game it and you could see misconduct, malpractice, gamesmanship. And I don't know if that means strict regulation. I'm just saying this feels very gray area. And I can imagine it being gamed in several different ways. I mean, there's huge rules around sports betting, right? And around other forms of betting. It does feel like this being a gray area where, because you're betting against other people, there are no rules apply. But I don't know. Did you bet at all on the Donald Trump speech?
I've not really gotten involved in Polymarket. It's clear that people have gambling addictions, and what they've done is literally just made it so seamless and then just to be able to gamble on like any random thing, which is, it's almost like it's not too different to the pump.fun stuff. Like if Donald Trump says something funny in a speech, inevitably there'll be a pump.fun coin and people will try and trade that, right? And now you can actually just like bet on or trade, even like you can buy and sell these things, different words that he'll say in his speech. So the concept is very similar, which is it just
crazy. Look at this.
Fully enables your gambling addiction, basically.
Yeah. Then I think we can do it for Kamala too.
I know we touched on the regulation on this, but like, how is this not regulated as much as a casino would be?
I think because it's PvP, it's one of the main things, and it's events in the public domain.
Right. So the
rather than
house
like,
isn't setting odds and all that stuff, basically.
right. And also that it's not, they do a little bit of sports, but I think the sports is where they'll really get into a gray area. I do think that the CFTC charged them on something a couple of years ago, Polymarket, but I believe they're based offshore now, or at least part of it is based offshore. I don't really know, but to me, this does feel, when you start to get into the betting of future events, and you see this amount of size going through, I feel as though somebody's going to try and say, "Hey, we need some regulation around what's being done here."
Absolutely. Like I get it. Like there are no house odds, but I think regulation is also in place to protect the consumer from like over gambling or whatever.
We should do.
So,
I'm just going to
yeah.
put the Kamala one in there as
Yeah,
well.
as I said that, I realized you could then extend that argument for like basically all of crypto and all of like retail stocks and everything. So yeah, I don't know. It's a gray area.
But there have been moments here where people have said this can even affect like real time outcomes. I think there was one which was like which meme coin would reach $1 billion first, right? And then somebody said that the reason why PopCap, for example, reached $1 billion was because one of the major Polymarket traders basically bid it up just to win that bet. So there is like an outcome thing here too, and there's been a lot of questions also about even on the major market here, which is Trump versus Harris, that maybe special interest groups are coming in here and bidding up different candidates because it makes their candidates seem stronger. Because these odds are being reported so much, and you can move the odds with enough volume that becomes very, very important. I think there's a lot of criticism about that. I mean, you only really heard it since Kamala's gone ahead of Trump in the polls, but people have said that potentially Democratic special interest groups have come in and bought up some of that. So when it gets into that, and maybe there's a post game here where people say, well, Polymarket was gamed by, the Iranians, the Russians, they came in and bid her up, and that forced people to think that she was doing better. That's kind of when you suddenly see very, very strong-handed regulation. So I do think we're probably heading to regulation of this market. You can enjoy it while it lasts, though. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I think we'll go into the left curve corner stuff. Should we do that?
Yeah, let's do it. Left curve corner. I love watching this new graphic we've got for it.
I know, I love it too. So the first thing is pump.fun, the major meme coin launchpad, has hit a record of 5.3 million in daily revenue. This is more than the next 24 protocols combined, and comes after changes to the incentive program where meme creation is now free and rewarded if the coin hits radium. Number 2, top NFTs rise 30 to 100% on the week, with projects like DeGods, Bored Apes, Pudgy Penguins all leading the charts. Broadly, there seems to be a shift away from meme coins, which people have been finding increasingly PvP and into NFTs. Number 3, REKT up 120% after it launches Drank Points. This is actually OSF and my project. Holders are now being rewarded for social quests, and there will soon be points tied to the purchase of upcoming sparkling water drinks, which NFT holders were granted equity in. Number 4, we spoke about it before. Hyperliquid, Berachain, and Monad appear to be the top protocols winning mindshare ahead of H2 airdrops. Hyperliquid is in the DeFi space. It's a perp DEX. In particular, it's seen its TVL rise around 40% in the last month and is easily the most popular perp DEX on Arbitrum. And finally, number 5, Giga. The meme coin on Solana has hit an all-time high of 270 million. The meme coin now has signed deals with Mike O'Hearn and Ernest Kalamov for its Giga fitness brand. The project is aiming to be a Web3 Nike, and is the only meme coin over 50 million up in the last week. All right, there are your 5 stories. Which you want to get into a little bit more?
I think we should chat about pump.fun.
Yeah. This has kind of been the main story, I think, because so many people have been focused on meme coins and no one's really been making money. Smoking chicken fish, it's not looking so good from a few weeks ago. And that's generally the case for, I think, out of the top 100 meme coins, I checked even today, Giga was kind of the only one up on the week. And suddenly people are pointing fingers, and pump.fun has seen the lion's share of that finger pointing. It's become kind of the OpenSea of this cycle, which was the main NFT exchange last cycle, which made a ton of fees, and people now looking at them because they're now making around kind of 1 to 5 million a day. It went up to 5 million the other day. And the main shift here is that they've made creating meme coins completely free. And they've also made it so that if a meme coin reaches Radium, which is kind of the DeFi exchange, that which I think it reaches at 75 million, that the creator makes 0.5 Solana. So what you've seen there is a massive increase in the number of coins. We're starting to see kind of around 15 to 20,000 coins a day going through at the moment, which is absolutely wild. But only 0.16% of them were even reaching Radium. So it's a painfully low number of being successful, but it's been very profitable for pump.fun. So what do you make of the meme coin environment here? What do you make of pump.fun? Do you think it's good or bad for meme coins? What's your hot take?
I think it's bad for meme. I don't think depends what you mean by good or bad for meme coins. I think most people's definition of good for meme coins is that the meme coins they hold can go to like a $5 billion market cap or whatever it is. And in that lens, I think it's bad because it's made it so easy to create a meme coin whenever you want to, that whenever there's a new meta, whenever there's something happens, someone just smashes out a pump.fun coin, and that is very quick to steal the limelight away from whatever you are holding. So I just think it's divided a lot of the attention and liquidity on Solana and meme coins across a large amount of meme coins compared to maybe a handful of meme coins that we had at the beginning. And if you didn't have millions of meme coins out there, I bet you something like WIF could have been trading at like a $10 billion market cap or something like that, right? Like $5 billion market cap, because everyone would be getting behind the same thing. And it felt like in 2021, everyone got behind Doge and everyone got behind SHIB. And you obviously had like a bunch of other different dog coins that all did really well, but it was nowhere near like as crazy as this, because there were some hurdles to be able to create a coin. You had to, you couldn't just make a few clicks and anyone could do it, right? Now, literally anyone can do it. So it's great for pump.fun because the activity keeps rolling in, and it will continue to do so as people continue to gamble, and they'll make a ton of money. But I do think it's extracted from, it's changed things from being like PvE to PvP, because people are now just, it's now like, which meme coin do you buy? There's so many, like, where do you start, right? Whereas a few months ago it would have been like, cool, like here's like 5 you can probably buy and you should do pretty well. And it's kind of why I just, I don't really own any Sol meme coins now, because it's just, you don't really know what to own, and you don't know what's, apart from Epic Dark, obviously. And I think ETH meme coins are maybe in a better spot because you have 2 or 3 clear winners that I think will be hard to knock. But even then, it's not black and white. So I think it's personally ruined things a little bit, in my opinion. It's not their fault. Like, it's a great idea. It's a great product. It works really well. What you can do with it is amazing. And they're making a ton of money out of it. It's a great idea.
They've made about $80 million so far.
Yeah.
You've seen some of the major trading bots like Photon have made, I think, around 200 million. I saw an estimate of all the fees being paid to pump.fun plus the trading bots is something around 500 to 600 million as an estimation, which is high given Solana meme coins. I don't know what the summation of them all, but it'd be in the low billions. I think WIF is easily the highest, and that's at 1.1 now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not talking high levels for a lot of these meme coins now. So to lose all of that in fees seems pretty high. I just don't know. Like, do people complain about the shovel sellers? It feels as though people always come back to this. I agree. Right now it's PvP, but that's kind of what we went back to before, which is just that we haven't seen that many new entrants come in. I do still think meme coins are the best, or one of the best products in terms of onboarding. So many people came in via a meme coin, and I kind of feel like that's not going to change. That's like a multi-cycle thing.
Yeah.
Because when you speak to somebody and they say, hey, what should I buy? You don't tell them to buy Bitcoin. They don't want to know to buy Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah. It
They
just
come
makes
in
it
and say,
hard
hey,
to
what can I
know
make
what.
a 10x in?
Yeah. You've got to also, because of that, the nature of the way they're trading, some people want to buy something they can forget about for a few weeks or months. You can't really buy any meme coins now where you can forget about it for even a day. You have to really be on top of it. So I think that's why the landscape's changed. Should we move on to questions for the last 15?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
Before we get into the questions, we just want to flag some other content actually on Real Vision. The Sui co-founder joined Real Vision's Ash Bennington yesterday for a deep dive. That conversation is available to pro crypto members on Real Vision. So go to realvision.com to check it out. And we will move on to the questions. All right, let's see. What do we have here? Peter from the Real Vision website. When you look at the total weekly chart, it looks like an inverse head and shoulders is completing. Also, global M2 money supply is breaking to the upside. Do you really think it's time to sell some? Is this not the perfect time to buy?
I think we've
Fair
kind of
point.
answered that. I don't know if it's like the perfect time to. I personally think we're probably going to get a retest of those, of like around 50 at least, just by the nature of. But I do think that's a buy. I think it's a head fake, or it's a bear trap, whatever you want to call it. Like it's. I don't think the underlying things, like the things that we're speaking about in terms of adoption and in terms of liquidity, like you just mentioned, those things matter and they matter over the long term, but that doesn't stop, these wicks down where everyone's just had enough because we're underperforming and why would you own crypto right now when all these tech stocks are rallying? Like, I think that you tend to see those like violent moves lower, and I think we'll probably see a couple more of those before the election.
This is the way I see it, right? You have global M2 money supply going up, liquidity increasing, inflation coming lower, economic data still strong, rates coming lower, election honeymoonism. Like there's so many things that are so positive for risk assets and you should be long, right? And that's not really the question at hand. The question is crypto or are altcoins the best way to express a long in that environment? And that's the bit I'm having a tough time with because so far this year, it's kind of just been a pretty average way to do it. And you have had periods in the past where crypto hasn't quite joined the rally in TradFi, like something like a year like 2019, right? We just ground higher, all throughout 2019. While crypto, I guess Bitcoin did that a 3 or 4x there, but for the first half of the year, it was pretty dead. 2017 is another example, probably, I guess, as well. I guess crypto did well and then had this big crash at the end of 2017. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm really bullish on the economy, market, risk assets, but is crypto a well-behaved risk asset? And it hasn't been so far. And I think that's because of supply overhang. And the question is, does that supply overhang clear in time? And is it small enough that it can be absorbed and we get enough people in crypto to bounce back, or will it just kind of be forever a stumbling block for this cycle?
You're sounding very bearish by the end of that, man. Like, I like the start. I didn't like forever a stumbling block. I think we're going to be fine. I think
we'll be fine too, but I'm just trying to say, like, before the analysis would be like, I'm bullish market, buy crypto. That's how I always used to think. And now I'm like, I don't know, like, is that the right way to think still?
It's still the best performing, or Bitcoin is one of the best performing assets for the last 10 years. I know over the last 2 or 3 years, it's kind
last
of
10 years for sure, but
yeah,
it's different ball game now, isn't it?
I think it's I think we're going to go to crazy numbers, if I'm honest. Like the way that I step back and look at how
we should, like on paper, we should. We should, if Trump's president and they buy 1 million coins and they announce it as a strategic reserve, like these are just insanely bullish things. But this, again, that's specific to Bitcoin. I think other coins would rally on it, but there's a lot that has to happen before we get to that stage. Yeah, I don't know.
My view is that don't be surprised if we go lower, but we'll go higher over the medium term. Like, don't be sitting there going like, well, this is just a screaming, like, the way that this market feels, it feels jumpy. Bitcoin volatility seems very high. it feels like the number of holders hasn't gone up during this period. So people who are long-term believers are just buying more. It feels like you're seeing that is that whales are buying, but maybe the number of people seems to be kind of stagnant, and that's that sometimes leads to flushes lower.
So Melvin's question was, what do you guys think of this crypto bull cycle so far? It does feel different from 2017 and 2021 cycle. Curious about your thoughts. I do think, there's this question that exists now where is it really a cycle? Like, have we just had like some price action? We haven't really started the real cycle yet. I think the reason why it feels different, or people think it feels different, is because Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, but it wasn't really materially above the previous all-time high. That's the first thing. Second thing is because we'd never really had this alt season and altcoins going crazy. Although I would counteract that with the fact that we had a big meme coin rally. But yeah, those are the two reasons why I think it does feel different to previous cycles.
I think it feels completely different.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it feels completely different. I think we have seen some new people enter this cycle, but I would say that for the large part, it's felt like it was last cycle's people sticking around, or even like 2 cycles people sitting around. Meme coins have seen like an influx in some users coming, but again, it still just felt like it was largely a lot of the same people kind of PvPing. So I feel this hasn't been like the last few cycles. I think we will see. I was of the view, and before people started talking about this cycle, that we probably see less cycle-like behavior. Like these cycles would be slightly longer. Now that we've got TradFi involved, there'll be less down 90% in the bear market. Like they'll feel a little bit shallower. And I also think, but they'll be more extended. And that's kind of what I still think, is that this is the foundations, but I'm not like we're going to go into some massive bear market where everything drops 80%. I think we probably just have slightly more normalized returns over a longer period.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we're just expecting this crazy price action that we've seen in the past, but there's an argument, say, with ETFs and whatnot, that markets are a bit more efficient and a bit more stable. And while that's what
I think.
Yeah, while we've had this chop, and everyone's like, "Oh, this chop sucks," that's also a sign of a more stable asset. So, there's that to consider as well. Okay, question from Reed Armour on YouTube: if you have $100,000 to deploy into one asset and are looking for just a 2 to 3x from here to sell between summer and autumn 2025, where do you put the money?
Just a 2 to 3x.
I'd say Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you're looking for a 2 to 3x, I think honestly, the best risk reward is probably Bitcoin. Or I think Solana is probably a good one. We spoke about Sui. It feels like the risk reward in something like an L1, which people think can be bullish. I would pick an L1, and it would be Bitcoin, Sol, Sui, Ton. I think would be my top 4.
Yeah, I think if you're just looking for 2 to 3x, I do believe Bitcoin will do that in that time period. That's still my base case, I think. And the downside of Bitcoin is obviously far, far less than other altcoins. So yeah, that would be my vote too. All right, from Wolf Shen on YouTube: what's the opinion on the weakness in Solana's price relative to its obvious lead in terms of usage, speed, user experience, etc.?
Well, I don't know if I fully agree with that. Like Solana hit an all-time high versus ETH. To speak to ETH people, like it's more just been Bitcoin's outperformance. Bitcoin dominance is hitting close to 58%. Looks like at the moment. I think Solana's been the best horse to bet on. I do think what we just spoke about. Take a step back. Like, where's all the Solana? What's been happening on Solana? It's mainly been meme coins, and we're telling you that meme coins don't feel that great right now, and everyone's been losing money. They still have people, still have users, still have stuff happening on pump.fun, like they're generating fees. But generally, if people feel like they're not going to make money in meme coins, I do think that affects Solana more than any other chain. So it's also something to be like cognizant of, is that one of the major bull cases for Solana usage is probably taking a little bit of a hit at the moment, at least over the last 2 weeks for sure. But I do still think that Solana has the best thing going for it in terms of what you just said means that it can shift into other narratives very quickly. Like whatever narrative comes through, if it's DeFi, Solana's really good at DeFi too. You know, if it's going to be payments, Solana's really good at payments. If it's, you know, DePIN, whichever narrative you want to pick about altcoin usage, Solana can be very, very strong in. But it does feel as though meme coins, them slowing down does affect Solana more than others.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think Solana performance has been pretty good, as you said. Like Sol ETH went to 0.063, I think, which is a new all-time high. So its relative performance has been doing pretty well. Yeah, I get it. Sol's down, but you know, the market's been struggling too. I like this next one from Christopher on the Real Vision website. Your sentiment is so negative that I'm getting excited. It's
I'm
true.
not negative,
I mean, like,
right? You can speak to OSF.
I think it's true. Like, I think the time, as we said earlier, like consensus seems to be quite negative right now, and it's, you know, often good to take the other side of things. Like I feel negative more from an angle of frustration rather than like necessarily being bearish. Like I'm still pretty long. I think you can't not be long crypto here. Like I would kick myself for selling a large amount here and then things finally move. Right? It just feels like it's a patience game right now, and I think lots of people are losing their patience. So.
I think that's a sign of being a trader. Like you having a professional trader background, like you'd be amazed at the way when you speak to traders, they have a sure view about it's strong opinions loosely held. You know, you can change your mind like that about something and then go all in, right? I think that's kind of being more of a trader than like, let's say, a long-term investor. If you're you're looking at this like long-term investor, yeah, I do think this is not a bad time to buy. But I do think as a trader, we're saying tactically, don't be surprised if it does go lower, and maybe that's a short-term good time to buy as well.
Yeah. Okay. Last question from Gary on the Real Vision website. Do you think the ETFs has been positive or negative to the sector? Also, do you have your expectations on? Also, have your own expectations been affected by the launch of these?
So, do I think the ETFs have been good?
Yeah. So, ETF impact has been positive or negative, and have you changed your expectations based on how these launches have gone?
I think the ETFs have been very good, even if they haven't blown you out of the park in the first week or two. They provide the foundations for acceptance by TradFi, and the foundations for broader DeFi policy and broader crypto policy coming in over the coming years. So I think maybe the ETF is slightly disappointed, but I think over the medium to long term, having these is bullish. And the success, I mean, these have still been some of the most successful ETFs of all time, just to put it into perspective. It's just that crypto has a very warped sense of like what needs to be a success, maybe compared to the ETF industry. So this is the reason why they probably, you know, they want to do even more of them, because they're all earning great amount of fees, and you've seen huge volumes, and you've seen decent inflows, particularly into the Bitcoin ETFs. So I think they've been a success. I think there's, you know, maybe your investment advisor doesn't understand Ethereum yet, and that may be a little bit of a problem. Like maybe we need to have some improvements in the marketing of what blockchains can be used for and why they're useful. But I do think the Bitcoin ETF was advertised well and continues to be advertised well, and I think it's going to be one of the major success stories for crypto.
I think I agree with you. I think it's easy to get bogged down in the daily inflow numbers and think, oh, there's a negative inflow or an outflow. This is not great. But undoubtedly for crypto as a sector, it's unbelievably positive, because you have people like BlackRock now involved, and all these guys are making a ton of fees on the ETF. So you now have a new group of people who, by the way, are some of the biggest players in the traditional financial markets, who have an incentive to actually push crypto and legitimize crypto. And without the ETFs, you're lacking this level of legitimization. Like people would think crypto's a joke. Now you can say, well, look, the largest asset manager in the world has a Bitcoin ETF. Like, how can it possibly be a joke? And that goes quite a long way. I think that's quite a big thing. So it means that over a longer period of time, we should start to see greater crypto adoption from the traditional world, which I think will be good. It'll be great for improving volatility. It'd be great for liquidity. It'd be great for adoption. And I think the fact that ETH got accepted is also very positive. Like, sure, the ETH ETF performance has been very underwhelming so far, but the fact that it applies not just to Bitcoin, but also to ETH and to potentially other coins, I think shows you that there is also a future for other altcoins in the world of traditional finance. So for me, it's very positive, but it may just take a bit of time for us to see those effects come and shine through. And I think on that note, we can leave it there. We didn't actually nuke the markets for once.
As the market rips back in your face, though, Steph, you know?
Yeah.
Classic bear trap.
Classic bear trap, yeah. Bitcoin ripping from 58.2K to 58.6K in my face.
The comments are going to destroy you.
But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. That was REKT Vision. Make sure you following us on X. Sign up to Real Vision Crypto at realvision.com/RVC to access our monthly AMA. We will see you guys next Friday as usual, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time. Stay safe out there. Don't get too bad up by my sentiment today. And we'll live to fight another week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC. Execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.